Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and I think good evening in some parts of the world. My name is Liza Picao. I'm with the U.S. Forest Service International Programs. I'm a mother of two boys, 8 and 12, and we live right outside of Washington, D.C. And we're so happy to have you here with us. Adrina Berdekian and I started thinking about this discussion series several months ago. And actually, even though we started with a more general topic last week at the Nature of Cities Festival, we actually came up with this discussion series based on this very topic, motherhood in urban natural resources. And Adrina will talk to you all about that in a little bit. So today, the format is that we will have a panel discussion from our partners from around the world. This is a safe space. This is just a chance to be heard. This is nothing academic or research-based, but just really a chance to talk to each other about what we're seeing in this topic across cities around the world. So we have with us today Adrina as my co-host, and then our panelists are Destina from Ghana, Timia from Canada, Tatiana from Mexico, Natalia from Ukraine, and Nicole from Peru. And just a few housekeeping items. If you want to remain anonymous on this chat and don't want to be part of the recording, you can just blank out your screen, mute your screen, and change out your name to anonymous. That way we won't have you officially recorded. If you want to also have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat box. My colleague Alison Saracina is monitoring the chat, so if you have any questions, you can ask there. And then during the discussion, please do mute your microphone. And then during the plenary at the end, we'll ask folks to turn the video and the microphones back on. So today, Adrina and I are going to start it off with an introduction. Then we're going to ask you to take a walk with our panelists and their journeys, and we'll ask them some questions, and you'll just get to hear their perspective from their countries and their cities. And then we'll have some breakout groups. Our panelists, as well as a few other discussion leaders, will lead discussion groups around certain topics, and then we'll come back to plenary together. So again, Adrina Berdekian from Canada, I'll introduce her in a little bit. I'm Liza from Washington, D.C. Tatiana is from Mexico. She is with Conabio, which is a biodiversity organization in Mexico, but she also founded Amazilias, which is an organization for women who are interested in bird watching. Nicole from Peru is the founder of Ficus, and they do a lot of work on urban forestry in Lima and right outside of Lima. Destina Samani is a colleague of mine in international programs. She's based in Ghana and works in Western Africa on a lot of not just urban forestry, but reforestation, community engagement, and other topics. Natalia Voloshina from Uzhhorod, Ukraine, is with an NGO that's women-led called Forza, and they do a lot of community engagement work, reforestation, and use a lot of tools to engage the communities, both youth, women, and the larger communities at large. Then our discussion leaders are Daria Kudryavtsev from Russia with World Wildlife Fund, Karin Theophile, who is my colleague from international programs, also based outside of Washington, D.C., and then Sonia Camargo with Pro Arbol, a forest engineer from Valledupar, Colombia. So I'm going to turn it over now to my good friend, my co-author, my co-host, my partner in crime, Adrina Berdekian from Canada with Tree Canada. Adrina?
Thanks, Liza. You're awesome. Just, I feel so honored, really, to be hosting this series with you, and I'm really thrilled at the turnout today for our second episode of Where Women Choose to Walk. Welcome, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today. And we're just really eager to hear your thoughts and stories and anything that you want to share with us to make this discussion fruitful and just and engaging and learn from each other. As Liza mentioned, we started this series because we wanted to explore topics that were meaningful to women and to delve into the various experiences from around the world through these conversations. Really, our goal is to build a global and inclusive community of practice where we could share ideas and feel supported, not just from women, but from men, from all genders, from moms, from non-moms, from everyone. So as Liza mentioned, it was really nice to see the results of that poll, to see everyone represented evenly. So our first episode was launched at the Nature of Cities Festival on February 23rd, and we talked about urbanization and career choices, strategies to support women. And today we're narrowing this topic to focus on mothers and the unique perspective that being a parent brings to our work and our lives in urban forestry and natural resource management. And so there are a lot of pressures that women face around the world uh, related to motherhood and the choices that we make on being one, either biologically or not, on becoming one, or not wanting to be one. And our conversation today stems from our desire to talk about all these things. So when we, let me click my slides, sorry. So when we think about, I guess, the cultural, historical, and language associations related to motherhood, one of the most obvious that comes to mind is Mother Earth as a concept and accepted global cultural norm. And by extension, the ebb and flow of life, of natural elements, of beauty and terror, of softness and strength, and in some cases being gentle, and in others being uncompromising. And yet, in many of the conversations that Liza and I shared and the discussions that we've seen, the dominant, socially accepted representation of motherhood is nurturing and often self-sacrificing. And there's a disconnect with the way that this is dealt with in real life and how mothers are perceived in some cases and also often judged for their decisions. And if motherhood should be nurturing and soft and accommodating, then why doesn't that infrastructure for so many urban societies or workplaces specifically support that? Next slide, please. So a bit about me. My family is comprised mostly of women. Actually, we hadn't had a boy born into the family for about 17 years. And then when he was born, it was like showering with gifts and accolades. But outside of professional colleagues and mentors, my mom, my grandmother, and like my maternal grandmother and my sister have been the most influential women in my life. I'm first generation Canadian. I'm born of Armenian descent, so I had a pretty conventional upbringing to a degree. My sister's only 13 months older than me, and so we were raised like twins. And for the first 10 years of our lives, we lived in Italy, back and forth from Italy and Canada for my dad's work. And we traveled around Western Europe and came back and forth. And what was really the most important thing to me growing up, and of course, in retrospect, I can self-reflect on these things more than when I was a child, but these were the most important things to me: the concepts of home, of heritage and language, exposure to various cultures and experiences, and the support our parents offered us, and later, of course, the appreciation. My mom was a huge inspiration to me and supportive of my desire to go into the arts. I mean, forestry only came into my life kind of later through my graduate studies, but before that, I was in creative writing and art and theater. And she was a fashion designer, which was really different in her generation and in our culture for what she wanted to pursue in Canada when they immigrated. And she had a line of clothing in the 60s and 70s, and then she taught at Ryerson for about 30 years. And so, and I often think when I was a kid, my sister and I grew up roller skating down the halls of that school. while she prepared for fashion shows with all her students and fellow faculty members. And so from a really young age, we were exposed to a lot of different geographies and cultures and orientations. And so that really left an imprint on me, and this desire to kind of explore that through my work and just through my own life. But it really wasn't until I became a mom, which was just over a year ago now, that I really started appreciating my mom and my dad in so many different ways, and started to see them as people, in a way, as individuals outside of their roles to me. So I'm really grateful for that. And anyway, so we'll share a little bit more about that in the course of this conversation. Next slide, please, Liza. Thank you. So when I became a mom, there were 4 things that in retrospect, no one prepared me for. The first was love, and nothing prepared me for this well of kind of wonder and that consumed me, my daily thoughts. And as I watched my baby in that first several weeks and then months, how she discovered new things and just was so interested in everything. And so it was just, that was a complete shift in my psyche with the way I felt, and dealing with feelings and sort of affect and sentiment. And and those of you who know me know that I'm not so comfortable with a lot of those things. But so that was the first that really surprised me in such a beautiful way. The second was fear and vulnerability. Seeing the world through mom tinted glasses can be horrifying for this reason. And that's how I felt, particularly in the first year. The emotional roller coaster is visceral and intense, and those intense feelings subside, sure, after sort of the hormones and things go back to normal. But I didn't feel the same, and that need to kind of, the desire to protect but also prepare your child for the real world is palpable. And then the third was how our social circles would change. I wasn't ready for that. We really began to gravitate towards friends with children so that our daughter could play with other children, and have that stimulation and experience. And Sunday mornings quickly became play dates and stroller walks and sipping what usually ended up being cold coffee by that time, as we tried to interact with other families. And then the friends that we had that didn't have children started to shy away from us. We didn't see them as often, and that was challenging. And as our child grows, that would hopefully sort of circle back and things change and evolve, of course. And the last thing is how I would feel returning to work, and returning to work after a maternity or a parental leave, and shifting my mindset from all things baby back to urban forestry and research was hard enough. But what was surprising was reintegrating into this culture of work that hadn't changed, but I felt completely emotionally and physically, and navigating that unchanged landscape of relationships, professional relationships and personal relationships has been really interesting for me. So next slide, please. And so as Liza and I spoke and reflected on our own experiences as daughters, as women, and as mothers, we wanted to learn about others' experiences around the world. And for today's discussion, we've outlined these 5 topic areas that really resonated with us and with our friends and colleagues, some of whom are moms and some who are not. And topics include work-life balance, careers and workplace policies, identity and culture, raising environmentally inspired children, and alternative livelihoods, and the impact during this pandemic. And our goal is to share these stories and support each other as we delve more internationally and deeply into these topics. And I'll just go through each one before we get started. Next slide, please. So when we think about work-life family balance, we always say work-life balance, but I like to include family there because I think that as moms and as parents, our lives sometimes can and should be separate from the way we identify in those roles. So what are we doing for ourselves, and what kind of inspires us and drives us is also really important when we think about those separations and how we essentially spend our time and what we want to spend time on. And so work-life family balance, mental health, self-care, and one of the topics that's often raised under this umbrella is this idea of mom guilt, and how this essentially permeates every aspect of our lives. Am I doing enough? Am I prioritizing my time? Am I doing enough for my kids, for family, etc.? But so we're interested in understanding and learning what are some strategies for balancing multiple responsibilities that you employ that have helped you. There's also a tendency for moms to, like I said, leave their own well-being to the sidelines as we juggle these different priorities. So how do you overcome the feeling of needing to choose between yourself and others? And how are you taking care of yourself without that resentment or that guilt? Also, working in natural resources, we talked about this. Like, do you sometimes feel among various peer groups that we're held to a higher standard with respect to environmental action and awareness, friends and colleagues who are not necessarily in that world that we're in? There are certain things that perhaps we, should be doing just because we technically should know better. And, and that's tough. I mean, as a mom, I've had to sacrifice some ideals and do things that I didn't think I would. For example, using disposable diapers or carrying around a package of wipes everywhere we go, just in case something spills or drops inevitably. And so what are some things you've given up or strategies for staying the course? And finally, what does the notion of balance in these areas look like around the world? Next slide, please. So the second topic area relates to careers and workplace policies for support. This looks different across the world. Even within the same country or city, companies have their own policies and programs that deal with parental leave or not at all. And in our initial discussions, we found that no matter where you are, women continually feel marginalized with respect to childcare. And arguably one of the most important jobs is not accommodated, let alone celebrated. So what are some of the workplace structures or policies in your region or country surrounding parenting and childcare? Do you have leave? If so, how much? Does your work offer childcare services? Is there flexible return to work options that you can ask for? Also, many parents struggle with leaving their kids in the care of strangers, especially when they're infants and they need to return to work early because they don't have that support system or options. So what are some mentorship opportunities or strategies that you can share that have helped you? Next slide, please. The third topic area deals with negotiating identity shifts and cultural nuances and contentions that can come with that, and how those impact or can impact daily routines for you as a parent. So we experience culture at various scales within our family units, within community, within city, within country, and it kind of extends out from there. And we all come from diverse ethnic backgrounds, religions, languages that all have their own conventions and traditions that sometimes can compete or don't always coincide with those various scales and circles that I mentioned. So given that our family units are unique, how do you concede those scales? And how does culture influence your behavior and impact your decision making as a mother, as a parent? Becoming a parent can shift your perspective and can change your concept of identity, where you find yourself split between multiple selves and again competing priorities. So what are some ways that you can bridge that? How can you continually redefine and reaffirm who you are without losing yourself? And lastly, elements in our physical environment can also impact our ability to do or offer certain things as a parent. So how does the physical landscape and geography around you impact your daily routine and what you might or may not do or offer for your children? Next slide, please. The fourth topic relates to raising environmentally inspired children. And what does this look like around the world? And how can we strive to better encourage our kids to grow up as stewards? So what are some strategies for doing this, for raising environmentally inspired kids? What are specific activities that you do or lessons that you practice in your home? Also, how are you integrating your own natural resource knowledge from the work that you do in your parenting practices? Another topic that came up in this area is balancing technology development and safety. So how can we raise our children to have a good relationship with technology and a healthy one where they're learning, but also how can we navigate that education and as well as feel that they're safe? And lastly, consumerism. And that's sort of a big one, because all of a sudden when you become a parent, there's all these things you need, and you need to have, you need to buy, you need to use, and this can really affect sort of that decision-making process. So we're interested to kind of hear, how does consumerism differ in various countries? What are your motivations or deterrents for making purchasing choices, whether it's clothing or toys or services? Next slide, please. And finally, our fifth topic that we offer to stimulate today's conversation relates to the pandemic and how it's been affecting families and home environments around the world. More than ever, parents are actively involved in the day-to-day of their children's education. And as many parents will tell you, they're not educators. And so how is this impacting parent life and family life? During lockdowns, mothers have sacrificed their work to look after the kids and have had to become teachers, essentially. And we're seeing article after article about women being most affected by this during the pandemic. So what is the effect of lockdowns on mom's work? And third, what are some of the environmental concerns and stressors that your children are dealing with during this time? Stressors like loneliness, crowdedness, or isolation, and then health concerns. And again, how is this impacting family life as well as work and the spectrum of urban natural resources? Next slide, please. And so, as a recap, these are some of the topics and questions that we're putting forward today for discussion. Work-life family balance, careers and workplace policies, culture, identity, and daily routines, raising environmentally inspired children, and life during the pandemic. And we recognize that there are many more topics, and we're looking forward to hearing your stories and insights and ideas moving forward. And I also want to include that this is not the only day that we're going to deal with this topic. There's a we've said this is a year-long series and possibly longer. So we recognize that we might not get through all of these topics today, but it's just a starting point for further discussion. And we wanted to start our discussion with our panelists before we move into the breakouts and plenary. And I want to start with Liza, my friend, my touchstone and fellow author, and just like she said, partner in crime. Liza, this day is this topic, this series is so important to you for many reasons. Can you please tell us and start us off about your journey and who has inspired you to help shape your life?
Thanks. Thank you, Adrina. Really appreciate that. First, happy International Women's Day to all women out there, and especially to all the mothers who really just try to make it work, and all the daughters who have somebody muted me. So all the moms out there, I want to start with acknowledging my own mother, who at 21 decided to stay at home and raise me, and then subsequently my two brothers. And she had graduated with a hotel and restaurant management degree and wanted to go into hospitality, and decided that she really wanted to spend more time with us kids. And last year, she turned 67 on March 1st. And we had a lot of plans together because about 5 or 6 years ago, my mother rejoined the workforce tangentially, not paid, but through her Rotary Club in her small city of Surigao in the Philippines. She and her fellow Rotarians started focusing on the environment. They would do mangrove planting. They would look at the challenges that come with unsustainable mining practices. They would look at reforestation, and my mom spearheaded all of that. And it was really nice because I work in international programs at the U.S. Forest Service, and it was an amazing way for us to connect, on projects. And she would have me come and talk to the Rotarians or to the communities, and we would start projects together. And we had a lot of projects in mind, and a lot of the forums that took place in the farm. I think you see the pictures there in the bottom left and in the middle that my parents had set up, and where my two boys love to frolic without even once looking at technology. Like, it's unbelievable. They go there and it becomes this magical place for them where they just run around and ramble and relax, play in the springs, etc., look for wildlife, and not once do they ask for their smartphones or anything like that. And I dedicate this series to my mom because last year on March 11th, she passed away. She was the first Filipino to succumb to COVID. And it was really devastating because at that point, we didn't know that she had COVID. It was found out later. But that was also the day that the whole world went into lockdown. World Health Organization had declared it a pandemic. And, when that happened, there are a lot of emotions that got stirred up, from my kids not knowing their grandmother anymore, or the legacies that she's left behind, what of the projects, what of her, just missing her. It was a real struggle and a challenge. And one of the ways that we wanted to really honor her was to do some tree planting ceremonies, but we couldn't do that. My brothers and I live here in Washington, D.C., and we could not even go home to the Philippines to bury her. So she died alone. My father also had COVID, but he survived, but he was in a separate room. But we started making plans. And one way that we started to heal was to think about how we would carry on her legacy, how we would look at the boys, my two sons, and see how they can share in these projects that she started. Number two, how can we mentor young women to go into the natural resources field in the small city of Surigao, how to continue all the reforestation projects that are out there. So in a way, my job and my life and my family just seem to merge into one. And that's why I honor her today with this discussion series. So to that effect, I wanted to turn the screen over to our first panelist, Destina Samani from Ghana. And Destina, if you can turn on your mic and your video, please.
Yeah.
To ask you about the influences in your life and how, from a cultural point of view, from where you are in Ghana, in Accra, how are you balancing work, life, and family?
Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Liza, it's an opportunity to share my experience. I am growing up in a small town in the northern part of Ghana. In my society, even though not written, but the social definition for women in terms of career had to do teaching. You need a job that can take you to work and back home every day so that you can care for family. So my parents, including my mom, were both nurses, so that she can also have time. So they were running shifts. My father goes to work in the daytime, my mom goes at night, so they try to balance it. But growing up, I also observed that women were really suffering a lot in search for water, and that affected the girl child quality of education in school. And most time when there's no water, the females are asked to go look for water in search of water. And so by the time we get to school, we're either late or we get to school very tired and we are dozing off because they wake us up very, very early. And so I was actually influenced to see what can I do, where can I work, so that I'll be able to influence any support for women that would reduce that hardship for women, whether it's policy, it's practice that is denying women access and they have to go. So that's how I found myself working in the water and sanitation sector. And so for 12 years, I was in the water and sanitation sector. Honestly, forestry never crossed my path because where I was growing up, career-wise, I never saw any woman in my town working in forestry. They're either nurses, teachers, secretaries, but I've never seen. But I was just influenced by the plight of women and I decided to go into water. It was difficult a bit. I had my uncles that thought that, no, women don't do this. You need to marry. So you have to go to secondary, the training college or nursing. You can finish quick, you can get married because they are interested in getting their dowry. But I insisted that my parents were both educated and my father, and I was the firstborn anyway. So my father really wanted me to go far. So he followed my passion and supported me through. So having worked in the water and sanitation sector for 12 years, looking back, I would want to attribute my working in the forestry sector to the US Forest Service. When they recruited me to be an assistant director to manage a water and sanitation portfolio in a transboundary program that they were running in the Mano River Union area, that's Sierra Leone, Liberia, Guinea, and Cote d'Ivoire. And that was actually my first time of stepping out of my country. And so this needed a lot of discussion with the family. But fortunately for us in Ghana, the support system here really helped a lot because whilst I was working in the water and sanitation sector, it also required that I move to the field so that I can appreciate what women are doing, also identify myself with them and identify the issues. Then that helps me to really do advocacy or push for change. And so when I had my first baby, my uncle gladly sent the daughter, his last born, to support me care for the kids. So when I'm out, my uncle's daughter is there to support me. But while she was also with me, I made it an effort to support her because I like mentoring girls to also come up to be like me. So I decided to support her through her education as well. So while she takes the little girl to the crèche, she also goes for classes. And through that, she also became a nurse. She told me she had an interest to become a nurse. Fortunately for us, while she was supporting me, she managed to make the grades and she became a nurse. So when I was leaving and it was easier because she was there to support. But I had to move and relocate to Sierra Leone, very far from home. And she was now a nurse and have to work. So we had to arrange for another family member to travel with me to Sierra Leone. This person was very old, a 54-year-old person, to support while she was here supporting the home in Ghana. Unfortunately for us, whilst we were there, Ebola struck, and that was in 2015, and they asked me to come back home with the family. So I returned with the kids, but with my passion for my water and sanitation, I still jumped in there to support. I said, this is the time the people need us most. This is the time we need to increase access to water and sanitation. So I managed to convince the US we put in protocols that would enable us to support these communities without affecting them or also being infected. And so I went back without the family. And my cousin, the woman they said, who is a nurse, she took over the family responsibility and was with the kids. And so I would say that the US Forest Service actually moved me from the water and sanitation role I was playing and said, look, Destina, we think you can lead this entire program, which is a biodiversity program, which includes the water. So we want you to head the program now, and then you can also look at the water, but we will support you. So they had to hold my hand. I said, I've done nothing in the forestry sector. I've never done anything natural. They said, no, your role is to manage and build relationships. We will support you with the technical build. So that is how come they held my hand. And this is how I found myself in the forestry sector. There was a bit of climate change, REDD+, and so we had technical experts that were supporting from the US, and I was also on the ground managing the programs. And whilst I was there, now balancing the family, my kids, I made sure that, okay, when I have some time, I return home, but I also shared with them. They were very interested because my daughter was now grown, she was about 10, and she was very interested in learning about what I was doing. So at times when the US Forest Service gives us some water bottles with US Forest Service, I bring it home, I give it to them, and they were so happy to carry it to school, some rulers, pencils. So they became very interested. At times when I'm in the US, and I see books about forestry, wildlife, I bring to them. And so my kids became very interested in the forestry stuff. And at times when they are just watching the news in Ghana and they see anything forestry, mommy, they are talking about forestry, I should come and see. So they just became part of it. So just to say that this success, I would say, is a shared one. The US Forest Service holding my hand and really encouraging me and say, you can do it, we'll support you. I think that's really also helped me to move into a sector. And also my family and the social support where they were ready to help whilst I am away, because I spent, I can say about 3 months in total out of a year being out there in the field. Even when we're together, I would have to go to a field. That's where the work is. And so I have to leave them and move. But I think with time, the family too was happy because I was also contributing to the family upkeep and they thought my role was. So I think that family balance too really did the trick and the kids' interest in what the parents were doing. And so I would want to say that, I want to conclude by saying, yes, we need to also inspire others. At times people are even afraid to take that initiative to move into a particular sector. But if we are able to hold their hand, encourage them that yes, you can do it. Yes, society may say anything, no, this is not for women, but you'll be in the forest. And I even want to share a story of a colleague whose husband actually helped. If not, she would have also, either she would lose her relationship or she would abandon the job. She got this job that meant that she would need to travel. And the society, no, you allow your wife to go out there. Do you know what will happen? Men would meet her there and they'll be sleeping with her. So don't allow, the man is like, that is my wife. I know my wife and I trust my wife that she will know. So the man accepted and allowed the woman to go. And every day she will tell us her story that she is where she is because the husband really played a critical role in supporting her. There have been other women who say, no, I better don't lose my marriage. So let me abandon, I've got this opportunity, but I'm ready to abandon it for my marriage. But I think that the role of the men in really supporting the women and encouraging them to go for these activities and sector jobs are also very critical that we must also consider. So thank you very much. I'll be around for any questions.
Thank you so much, Destina. That's for your perspective and for sharing that. That's really incredible, and we appreciate it. And we're grateful for you and your insights here today. I'd like to invite, we're going to move across the ocean back to North America for our second panelist today, and for a very different perspective. My colleague Timia, you're a mother of three, working full-time, managing the city of Guelph's urban forest, and you're involved in the operations, the governance, and the politics really of the municipal system. So you know, we've heard from Destina and sort of the experience that she's had in her country. How has your role and your work influenced your role as a woman and as a mom?
Thank you, Adrina, and so nice to see everybody. It's a real honor to be here with everyone. This is really exciting. So yeah, for those of you who don't know me, I live in the city of Guelph in Ontario, Canada. You know, I never imagined when I graduated from forestry at Lakehead University in Northern Ontario that I'd end up working in a city of all places. I had a very different plan. And on top of that, let alone in my hometown where my parents and my sister live, you know, I always imagined I'd be working out in the bush up north in the wild. And, you know, so it's really turned a different way. So as my role at a municipality specifically, what that really helps me to do is emphasize the importance of community and how the decisions that I and we as a municipality make, influence the community. And for my kids, that gives them a perspective on just the importance of, again, influences of decisions and how we can be part of the community to make positive impacts. For my kids and me, it's activities with, the obvious activities like tree planting, which is kind of a no-brainer, and just anything else that, involves a community and making a difference for them. They've seen the positive impact that the projects I work on make, and they can actually connect with it. When they were little, they really didn't understand what I did, but as they got older and they're teenagers now, they themselves are driving around the city and they can really see some of the things that I've influenced, or even just the city in general is influenced, and we can talk about it, and they actually connect with it, and they understand the influence and the impacts, not just on us, but on the community. I think another thing that's really important to take note of is that because my kids understand what I do, it also helps them understand the privilege that we have. I know there's a lot of others here today that don't have a lot of the privileges that my kids have growing up in a community like Guelph, where again, it just helps them understand that, we have rights, we have influences on decisions, that they can get involved, and that's very different from, the perspective that my parents have. I moved to Canada when I was 3. My family's from Serbia, so I am the family of immigrants, and they get a very different perspective from their grandparents of how little privilege they did have and the difficulties that I believe that I hear from some of these in this group that they're still facing today. So for my kids, it's been really important for me to emphasize the privilege that we all have in a community like Guelph, and specifically the privilege that I have in the decisions that I get to be part of. Now, on the flip side, though, I have to say that motherhood has influenced my work as well, and it's actually made me a more confident and better decision maker, when it comes to time management and just being a little bit more bold. I was quite shy when I was young, and maybe it's age or maybe it's kids, I don't know, but you kind of learn to say what you want to say and mean it. And I really do think that having kids for me has been a big part of that. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But thank you for having me, and it'll be great to talk to all of you.
Thank you, Tamia. That was wonderful. And I apologize that I didn't put you on the map earlier. I'm not going to even say mom brain, because that's not it. It's totally pandemic brain, I think, at this point. So thank you. And now I wanted to invite Tatiana from Mexico to join us. And Tatiana, wanted to hear more about the balance that the activities that you're juggling. You're a mom. You are running an NGO for women to do bird watching, but you're also in Conabio working on wildlife issues. How do you manage everything?
Well, I don't know if I manage like very well. I am into too, and I think don't have balance sometimes. It's okay too. I think it's better like understand and more with child, no? You don't control sometimes your time, and the work is different. Sometimes it's more and less and yeah, it's important to have a routine, but sometimes is broke this routine is okay. I think I birth in Iguala. Well, Iguala is a city in Guerrero, and for 17 years, I think it's not a place like a good place. In some parts in equality subject, for example. Right now, for example, they have a choice of a government with rape accusations, it's unbelievable. And my career in this part of my life was my I think like my salvation. I don't know if it happened to you too. And right now with a child, I think I live in Mexico City. It's good to know that she needs a lot of self-esteem, and she needs to know what is her rights, and like yeah, like environment, safe environment with children. I don't know, like a place that she want to she need to be safe. I'm sorry, I am a little nervous. I am glad to be here, and of course I want to hear about you. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Tatiana. And just to let you know, I've been nervous like the whole week. I'm right there with you. Thank you. Adrina, did you want to take the next one?
Sure. Thanks, Liza, and thank you, Tatiana. I appreciate your comments about first not having control over your time as a parent, and also having to focus on raising your child to be aware of their rights and in all circumstances. So thank you for sharing that. Our next panelist, Natalia, you're from the Ukraine. You're an international economist working for an NGO, and you're a new mom of a toddler. I can relate to that. So I'm wondering if you can share some of your insights on balance or how it's impacted in both roles for you.
Thank you, Adrina, and I'm very happy to be today with in such a nice ambiance of women celebrating this very important day for all of us. And indeed, I'm from Ukraine. I was raised and I lived all my life up till now in Ukraine, and this is rather traditional culture, a country with traditional values like family, motherhood, as traditional as it can be, meaning that mothers have to take care of children and stay at home and take care of all the homework and so on. And now we have a lot of discussions around this celebration of 8th of March, because during Soviet times, that was like huge, one of the biggest holidays for the community. And some people say that like Soviets, they were replacing traditional holidays with artificial ones. So the celebration of beginning of the year, celebration of spring. They decided to replace with this 8th of March celebration of, I don't know, women and beauty and all this stuff. So, and for my entire life, I was observing this men with flowers and cakes, you know, congratulating women one day in a year and telling them about their beauty and tenderness and so on and so on and so forth. And now we have, for several years already, we have a lot of discussion about how it really should be and what women really need this day and beyond. And as you mentioned, Adrina, I am a very new mother of 2-year-old toddler. And I must say that for me, this is the most challenging and the most difficult period in my whole life. And because in Ukrainian language, we have a saying or a phrase, young mother, meaning new mother. But I'm not very young, but new mother. And this is especially challenging because, yeah, I started my work career 20 years ago, and I worked for 18 years in a row without any breaks. And for 15 years, I'm working with the current team. And I was extremely happy to be raised in a democratic family, and where there was, for some reason, I cannot understand why, but I didn't feel any pressure on myself that I have to get married or I have to go somewhere, study this and not that, and I have to do this because I am a girl or I am a woman or I have to do it because of my gender. And I never had this pressure, and I was lucky to, maybe because I was raised in such a standard, I continued to work in the wonderful team, as you mentioned, led by women, and we have 75% of staff members are women in our organization, and all of them, yes, I was the recent mother. All the rest were, how to say, experienced mother. So I had a very favorable conditions to continue my motherhood, or to step into my motherhood and to dedicate my time to this new task, because I could feel understanding among my colleagues, and it's not just an understanding, it's a knowledge they lived through. It's the knowledge they really know what it is about, and that how I felt a great support. But I am aware of the situation of mothers in our country, and I think it's very similar to many countries with the I don't know, in the middle of the gender disparity index, or how to say, in the middle of the list of this gender equality index. We have a lot of issues related to mothers. We have a lot of pressure on mothers, and now it's even getting more more sophisticated, because mothers, before we had the main pressure was that they have to stay at home, take care of kids, arrange everything. And now we have additional pressure coming out on working mothers, like, I am a successful working mother, why aren't you? And you know, things like this. And this can be really challenging. From my side, I stayed at home with my kid quite a long time, I would say. and then I started very slowly to enter back into work routine, and that how it works. I understood that I cannot force these things, because this will not work. So I'm trying to observe what is the best for me and the child, and try to follow that pattern. And as I said, I'm lucky to have a chance to do that.
Thank you, Natalia. And I just wanted to let folks know that I got a text message here from one of our panelists, Nicole Heise, who was on here with her mom, but unfortunately she had to leave, and she sends her apologies and wants to very much share her perspective, not just about not being a mom right now, but also what it's like to be the daughter of a wonderful woman. So we'll send that out when in our follow-up emails. So for now, though, thank you to all our panelists. Thank you also to Adrina for asking these questions of them. And I want to turn this over to the next section, which is we'll have a break, and then we'll have the breakout groups. So during the break, we wanted to put you into the different groups again. If you would like to be in the Spanish language group, please let me know and I will put you there. And while we're on this 5-minute break, I'd like for you guys to take a look at these 6 images. And in the chat, feel free to let us know which image resonates with you. It doesn't have to be as a mom. It could just resonate with you, or maybe some of the topics today that you've heard, some of the stories, some of them, one of these images could speak to that. So just to clarify, the top middle photo, number 2, they're puppies in a bed. It's the cutest thing ever, but I realized it doesn't really magnify very well. So again, puppies in a bed. And while you're taking your 5-minute break, let us know in the chat, and then we will see you at 11:08. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. We're just we're getting back from the break slowly. Liza needs a couple of minutes, so I thought I would just go through the chat and take a look at our numbers here. So I did a quick tally, and we're looking at the top winners are image number 1 and image number 5. So 1 and 5 seem to be speaking to everybody. So 1 being the birds, the mom bird feeding the baby bird, and 5 being this powerhouse of a woman climbing. I can honestly say I don't know if I'd ever be able to do that, but I feel like it's a metaphor for life and how things feel, both in work and family life at times. So thank you everybody for participating in this exercise. This image exercise. Yeah. So if I'm just going to go through the questions to see if hello from Madrid, Spain. I see Anna's note. Thanks everyone who's been writing in the chats, thanking us for putting together this forum and organizing today. We really appreciate your participation and your gratitude, and we're looking very much forward to speaking with you in the breakouts in a couple of minutes when we return. Or when Liza returns, actually, she's manning the PowerPoint. So yeah, I mean, if anyone has any comments or questions at this point, I just want to open the floor for a couple of minutes. If anyone has something to say. I see Gail O'Donnell, you have your hand raised, and I don't know if that's on purpose or if that's by accident, but I'm happy to take a question or a comment. Okay, maybe it's by accident, but does anyone else have anything they'd like to share?
Hey, Adrina, I would like to share. This is Karen.
Hi, Karen.
Hi.
Please go ahead.
I am really impressed at the level of honesty with which people are sharing their stories. I think that so often when we get together to talk about career life balance or choices or cultural influences on us, I think we kind of keep it light or maybe humorous on the I'm feeling stretched or I'm feeling torn or my family doesn't approve of it or my culture doesn't see women in these roles. I think generally the conversation is kind of light and maybe humorous or, but it doesn't really go into depth like this so obviously you've been really successful, you and the organizers, Liza and everybody else, in really making this feel like a safe space, because I've actually never heard women who have a professional association be this honest about things. I think it's incredible. First time that I've heard something like this.
Thanks, Karin. I appreciate your comment, and I agree. I think everyone's been very forthcoming, and I hope that continues in our smaller breakouts. And we do recognize, and like we had said, we wanted this to feel like a safe space, and that's why we had asked people if they didn't want to be recorded to turn off their cameras and change their names in the chat as well. If other people do want to share, you're welcome to direct message either Liza or myself, and we can raise any questions or topics that you might have. And as I did mention, moving forward, this is not the only day that we want to tackle these conversations and topics. There will be other opportunities. So if you do have suggestions for topics or questions, or if you'd like to be a panelist in one of our episodes, then also I encourage you to please do connect with us directly and let us know. Let us know anything that you'd like to share or topics that you'd like raised. Even if you don't want to be the one to raise them, that's fine. So thank you everybody for your honesty, for your contributions, and Natalia, I'm going to pick on you because I see a little person. I see a little person that's come onto the screen, and this is what today is about. It's about celebrating these wonderful little munchkins that have come into our lives, and in some cases have grown up to. I did see someone else who's admittedly a grandma, who's also that's also wonderful. My parents, who are now grandmothers times 3, and I will share one on the way, so I'm pretty excited about that in July. But my parents always say that they can now enjoy their grandchildren because they didn't necessarily enjoy their children because it was a lot of work and stress. Anyway, so again, thanks everyone for sharing.
Adrina, I think we're ready.
Thank you, Liza.
A little thrown off by the numbers, but thank you. So I'm putting you in your rooms. If you prefer to be in a different room, please just leave the room and then I'll organize everything. Okay.
Liza, before you put everyone away, can you just switch the slide? Sorry, so that we can talk about the yeah, so in your breakouts, everyone, we would just, you're going to have a facilitator to lead the discussion. And we're also asking for one volunteer, not the facilitator, one volunteer from the group who will be interested in taking notes and then sending that directly to Liza and myself afterwards. And then we encourage you to, like I said, to share your experiences in the breakout groups and solutions and strategies to overcome some of the challenges that are raised. And then essentially we're going to compile and curate a list of those resources and shared strategies that everyone offers us, and that'll be shared through Google Drive that we'll get to later. But again, please do, you'll have a facilitator, and please do nominate a note taker to then send us some of the summaries from the breakouts. And the breakout groups will not be recorded, so we'll only be recording back when we get back into the plenary session and the wrap up.
Great. Thank you, Adrina. I'm going to open up all the rooms. And again, please feel free to leave your room if you would prefer to be in a different room. Tatiana is hosting the Spanish language room, and we have about 25 minutes for this so that we can have a little more time on our
about the good and bad things in the pandemic and the lockdowns and having to work from home. Some of them were really good experiences, such as spending more time with the kids, especially with the younger children, and to get to, you know, like spend time with their families, with their parents, take care of a sick parent. And however, everyone was talking about also the difficulties, including sometimes not having the like the privacy to be able to work from the from home, you know, the interruption of kids, and not having a me time. And this was like some others also were talking about mental health, isolation, issues that have to do with being on your own, not interacting or socializing with others, not being able to go out, not being to see your colleagues face to face. However, I think that everyone also agrees that we all should have a me time and should take care of ourselves and of our health, so that we would be able to take care of our families and of our work. Thank you. I don't know if any others who were in the same group would like to add something to what I said, but this is in a nutshell. Thank you.
So maybe before, I think Ingrid, you wanted to add something, but quickly just to say that we picked a topic. The topic was we're trying to look at working within, as a mother working within the pandemic. That's what we try to focus on. So if there's anyone who wants to add something quick before they move, that's fine.
Great. Thank you, Justina and Maha and Lynn and Ingrid and everybody else in your group. Let's take that thread of the pandemic. I think I heard that in Tatiana and Sonia's group as well, and want to hear your takes on that. Just a few highlights, please.
Yeah, I think Sonia have, yeah, Sonia, I have two, but if you want to say some of the points or...
Yeah, I'm gonna
okay.
go quickly and then you maybe complement.
Exactly.
So the first thing we talked about was like the options to manage stress and life balance through the forest bathing. Tamberly shared with us like how that works and quickly how it's being done. And then Gabriela from Mexico, she was talking about how she adapted some spaces, some workspaces in the house, and then try to make like little like outside workplace to improve his mental health. And also she was talking about how hard it's been for women to balance the workload between jobs and kids. And then Tatiana was telling us about how the anxiety of not maybe being in contact with nature was so hard until she moved from another house. And then what else? Carlos shared with us that in the pandemic, how the things were and how maybe that also had a positive side that maybe help to integrate family and values and moral and some other stuff that maybe before was put beside or put aside. So he was sharing the positive point of view, and how fortunately for him, he was living really close to a really green area, so it was not as difficult as maybe for other people. I think that was like a quick, very quick summary from some of the participants. Tatiana, do you want to add?
I will have a little add about connect with yourself in some time of the day. It's important, even 10 minutes. Maybe if you have a garden, and take your time to start your day, or in difficult moments in your house, because everybody is in and it's a lot. And Gabi said that we need to understand that man don't help, man do his part of this job, and it's important recognize that. And Sonia said to that this is important. Don't follow expectations. The expectation about don't be a mother in some age, or be a mother after this age, or any of you know, you maybe hear more about this kind of situation that women we have a lot, and I think is all.
Thank you,
Lisa,
Tanya and Sonia, and your group for doing that, and the therapeutic values of forests and gardens. We've talked about this many times, but it's really good to note that, especially for us moms, trying to find that. I know for me, it's so hard to find the time to just be by myself and do things for myself, and taking a walk in nature allows me time to regroup and to breathe a little bit and take space. So thank you for that. And let me call on Karen's group. Karen, is there somebody from your group who'd like to share a few highlights?
Hi, yes. I'll just provide just a quick overview, I guess, of some of the things that we talked about. We did kind of start with some general discussions, you know, introductions, but also kind of a general discussion about our roles and how that, I guess, you know, our work-life balance a little bit, or the kind of supports that facilitated our careers, I guess. So I think a couple of things that came up about that were a flexible work schedule and supportive employer, you know, so if you need to be at home with your children, or that kind of thing, but also that, you know, we as women need to make sure that we are not, you know, that we can say, you know what, I need a moment for this, or I need, you know, we need to be maybe a little more assertive instead of trying to please all the time. But definitely the flexible workforce and the support from an employer. But for a couple of us too, it seemed like family support was really beneficial. So I certainly benefited from grandparents and grandmas in particular that helped us, and one of the other participants did as well. And in some cases, at least for me, I said, you know, without that kind of support, I don't know if I could have done my job, because they could pick up the slack when I had to travel, and so that's been important. That was important for our group. And then also really just a few people, like one person in our group said that she was like the 5th arborist in Florida. So ISA arborist, I gather. I certainly, the supervisor I had early on in my career was the first female forester in our province, which is, we think that women have come so far, and that this is, you know, it's more recent than you think. Like, women are making inroads in forestry and this type of career more recently than you think. Like, it's amazing to me when I think that, you know, in my lifetime, I worked for the first female forester in this province, and yet people want to think that, oh, this is an issue of old, and really it isn't. Women are still continuing to trailblaze, I guess was the term that came up. And something else that just kind of came up is something that we thought was important, was connecting kids with nature and getting them involved in environmentalism, but just to connect them with nature, especially during the pandemic. They've really turned back. I mean, kids have been into electronics now before the pandemic, but now with the pandemic, it's really brought them into electronics. And in many ways, that's the only way they could communicate with their friends. So, but I think it's so important for their development, for their sense of confidence. So Karen talked about her daughter being engaged in this very rigorous program with involving hiking in the woods with no tents and hiking 26 miles, and just what a confidence builder that was. And so I think that's so important for our children's development in that way, and independence, where they can just run around in the forest and be kids and not be so constructed and entertained all the time. And I think that's pretty much where we left off at. I don't know if Karen, you wanted to add anything to that.
Thank you, Kyla. And Karen might have your mute button on. But in the interest of time, I'm just going to move this forward a little bit. Thank you, Kyla, for sharing that out into your group as well. And it's pretty hard to forge a path, especially for women, if they don't have the structures in place to help them, you know, be a pioneer, be a trailblazer. And so thank you for bringing that up in the discussion. I want to turn this over now to Adrina to close this out, but not really close it out. We're hoping that this is just the start of a new conversation with all our new friends that we've met today. Adrina?
Thanks, Liza. Yeah, I think, so I guess to summarize today's discussion overall, I mean, many topics, we talked about many topics and questions, both sort of panel level and plenary and through the breakouts. I mean, we looked at just to kind of, I guess, think back, like looking after ourselves as well as our families in general, working and living through the pandemic, and challenges around looking after children as well as balancing work, and essentially strategies for mental and physical health too, right? Differences in gender roles and managing expectations. We talked about ideas for engaging kids in outdoor activities and, as Kyla just mentioned, connecting kids to nature, but still balancing technology. And then, of course, workplace experiences and policies around flexibility and mentorship, if that was available. And then finally, this idea of building your village, right, around having children and the family and friends and work support. And if you can do that in advance, great. But I think you learn pretty quickly as soon as you have them that it's really impossible to do on your own. So there's also, I mean, in our group, there were some helpful strategies that came out of our conversations. And as I mentioned earlier, Liza and I will compile and share all these insights on our Google Drive. So the note takers that summarize some of the key notes, please do send that to Liza and I directly, and we'll get that up as soon as possible. We're also compiling a list of suggested articles, books, and resources on this topic and in general on women, both for, like I said, women, sort of the topics that have come up in our discussions, and as well as moms and parenting. So this is really crowdsourced. So we'll be doing our own research on this, but it's also crowdsourced. So please do send us your ideas and readings that you've done. I've put the covers of some. I think we're still on the slide. Oh, we've moved over. Thanks, Liza. But there were some covers on the previous slide of some books that I've found helpful, and also some children's books around nature and environment that my daughter really liked. And I just wanted to say that for our July session, our topic will focus on lifting up young girls and building confidence. So we'll have a lot more resources to share by then. So overall, on behalf of Liza and myself, I want to thank you all for your candid participation, your honest participation, and your thoughtful contributions to our discussions today. Thank you to our panelists, our discussion leaders, and our colleagues for helping with the production and coordination of this series. We're really grateful for your support and your interest. Feel free to email us at womenurbanature@gmail.com. And we also have a YouTube channel where all of these recorded sessions will be hosted. We have the shared Google Drive. The link is up there. And also, to continue the conversation online, please do to join our Facebook groups. We have one for women in general and one for moms specifically. And as I mentioned earlier, if you want to participate in any of our sessions, then please do let us know. Or if you just have topics or questions that you want to tackle, get in touch with us. And this is the information for our next session. Registration is now open for that session, and we do encourage you to please join us again. And that's on April 28th, and it's on women as stewards and citizen scientists. So thank you all.
Thank you guys so much for listening today and participating. We really appreciate it. We'll see you guys next time.
Can you put the registration into the chat so that we can link in it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm actually going to drop in a document right now that has all the links on it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Good to see you.
See you also.
Nice to see everyone. Thank you.
Gracias.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Dasha, I learned to say spasiba. Oh, she left already. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Elisa, I can still hear you. Your spasibo was really great.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Пока-пока. До свидания.
До свидания.
My child also learned to say spasibo very recently.
I forgot how to say please. I just learned it yesterday and I forgot it already.
Depends. In Russian?
Yes.
Пожалуйста.
Papa, yeah.
But Ukrainian is quite different, and my kid doesn't hear a lot of